So, as you may already know, I'm in my early 30s and retired. And one major way that I was able to facilitate this early retirement was to move to a new country. And if you're curious about that, I've linked the video where I talk about it in a bit more detail. However, I didn't just move alone, right? I'm married and I moved with my spouse who retired with me. Now, I mention this because there are those of you listening who are partnered, and although you would love to move, your partner may take some convincing or encouragement. So I want to share with you what I shared with mine that helped us make the move together. So I shared 4 things with my husband before we made the move. The order I'm going to list here is not the order that you have to follow, but I hope these steps or these things will help you think through some discussion points. But before I continue, I want to let you know what you're in for on this channel. So, I retired early, and I did so without having $1 million or 6-figure savings or winning the lottery. And I created this channel to show others that they can live any life that they want, even if they don't have much money. And I hope this channel inspires you to do just that. Now, back to the topic. Okay, so number 1, I showed him the money. What I specifically mean here is that I showed him the amount of money it would take to live elsewhere. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons that he considered the move. So I looked up the general cost of living for the places that I was considering, compared it to the cost of living of our country, which was Canada, and then I showed him that comparison. And I think that was pretty much enough to pique his interest. But by showing him that cost comparison, I was able to show him just how much further our money and our savings could go. Or even if, we didn't have enough savings and I had to get another remote job that maybe even paid less, he could still see that cost comparison. In either case, we can get a much bigger bang for our buck if we moved out of Canada. So some of the places I looked to do a cost comparison were theearthawaits.com, Numbeo.com, YouTube. So I'd look at videos made that year or within the past few months that talk about the cost of living and what you could get for a certain amount of money in the countries that I was considering. I looked on Google for sites that had local rental listings for the countries that I was considering, and this helped me to understand what types of homes were available and for what price. Facebook groups. So Facebook groups are a really great resource for getting information like this because you can search for answers to specific questions and then you can also ask questions. One helpful thing I did when I was looking for the right Facebook group was that I'd search for things like expats in specific country or expats in specific city. I think those expat groups are very helpful because they can help you think through and consider things that may be more relevant to your experience in that country. And the people in those groups will be able to share with you their current costs of living. So I started with this step because I knew money would be really important to him. And once he saw how much more affordable things could be, he was pretty much on board. The next thing I did was include my husband in the process. So I wanted him to be just as excited about moving as I was, and the best way to do this was to include him in the process. For example, if I was watching a YouTube video and I saw something interesting about a country, or, I saw something interesting that I thought he would like about a country, I'd show it to him and I'd talk with him about it. If I was looking at rentals, I'd show him what's available and for what price. I'd also ask him a bunch of questions, like about the type of house he'd want to live in or the type of area he'd want to live in. Would he want to be in an apartment or in a house? Did it have to be a gated community? Did he want to be somewhere in the hills? Did he want to be near the beach? Did he want to be more in the city? And then, I might look for something like that and show him. And then I'd ask him things like, if he were to do this move, what were his must-haves? Did we need to have a car, or would he be fine taking local transport? Is there anything that he'd want to be able to do and would need access to? Stuff like that. I wanted him to start visualizing with me what our life could be like, and I think it helped him to get more excited about the move. The third thing I did was make some compromises based on what he wanted. So we're two different people, and we're gonna have, different needs and different things that we'd be okay with. So since I wanted to make the move, like I'm the one that brought it up, and he's the one considering it, I wanted to ensure that I could be as accommodating as possible to get him more on board. So what would make him comfortable with the move? For example, my husband is very family oriented, so am I, right? So I knew that going to Asia or Africa would be out of the question right now because it's just too far for us, right? Like it would be too far to get back to family if needed. I also knew that there are certain languages that he prefers to learn, like Spanish, so he would be fine with Spanish-speaking countries. In my husband's case, though, some things that made him more comfortable were his abilities to do certain hobbies. We like to play online games together and individually, so strong internet was a must. He also loves to spearfish, so it was a must-have to have access to the sea and have the ability to spearfish. And if you're interested in seeing that type of spearfishing content, I've actually linked his channel in the description below. But going back to what I was saying, I think I would have been fine with, for example, an apartment, but he would be more comfortable renting a detached home with some land. I was fine being, a certain distance away from some things and in a more rural area, but he wanted to be a bit closer to the town, things like that. But the more involved he got, the more open and excited he was about the move. Now, the last thing I discussed with my husband was safety. So in a previous video, I mentioned that I personally don't think much about safety because violence is everywhere. And I know that as long as I keep my wits about me, I'm not hanging with sketchy people, and I'm staying in public places, and I'm doing the same things to be safe that I do in my own origin country, I should be fine. But just because I don't necessarily think about safety that much doesn't mean that you shouldn't, especially if you're speaking with a partner about making a move somewhere, and they may think about safety a bit differently than you. In my mind, generally, if I'm not moving somewhere war-torn, I'm fine. But my husband isn't necessarily like that. So I think it helps to show your partner that the place you're considering is safe, or, safe enough to live. A great way to do this is by showing them what people on the ground are actually saying. So using things like YouTube videos, Facebook groups, and other online communities are a great way to show that and to reduce any stigma against that country. For example, my husband and I moved to Jamaica. Now, Jamaica usually has some sort of travel advisory for safety. However, I'm living here and I'm fine. Many other people live here and they're fine. And when you ask about where the violence is happening, it's usually between rival gangs or between people who are involved in illegal activities, which we aren't, and we aren't hanging around those people either. So helping your partner understand how things are for others living in that country is a really great way to think through that safety issue. So these are the 4 things that I shared with my partner, which seemed to help him become a lot more comfortable with the idea of moving. I also do want to say that my husband has lived in Jamaica before, right? He's a Jamaican, so he grew up here, already knows what it's like to live here, and all of his family was here. So it made the decision to move back here a lot easier. However, not every Jamaican is looking to move back to Jamaica, right? And I don't think that he had initially planned to move back here so soon, if at all. But chatting through those 4 things that I mentioned, those 4 areas, helped to move things along much quicker and helped us to both think through the type of move we wanted to make and where we wanted to go. And if you're partnered and want to move, I hope that these tips helped you think through the type of discussions that you could have so that you both could find somewhere that works for you. Let me know in the comments below if you think these tips are helpful or even where you're considering moving to. In the meantime, feel free to give this video a like if you thought it was helpful. Liking the video will help YouTube suggest other videos like this to you because you're telling YouTube that you like this type of content. You're also telling me that you like these videos, which will encourage me to keep making them. And if you haven't yet subscribed, well, subscribing will help ensure that you don't miss any of my other videos because if you like this one, you're probably gonna like the other ones. Anyway, Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.